There's a whole lot of young people, they're not doing fine. And success stories are really exciting to hear about and to read about. And why is that? It's because they're unusual. It's because they are not the norm. And so how many young people get trapped in this crazy world and all the snares that are out there? Just way too many. And we need to turn that thing around, and we can do it. We can do it in a single generation once we kind of catch on to what we're really supposed to be doing. Now, all the work that I do here as far as mentoring and youth is really based on an Old Testament scripture, Malachi 4:6. He will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. And then there's a little ... there, if you will, or I'll come and strike the land with a curse. I look at the land, and probably most of us are from America right now. America's not doing all that well. We can say we're the greatest country in the world, but man, we've got issues. And I think a lot of it relates to the breakdown of the generations, not just the breakdown of the family, because even when families divorce and we kind of go our separate ways, there are still these generations that are moving through time, and somebody has to take responsibility to prepare that next generation. So here's something for us to think about. We live our lives, and then another generation comes behind it, another. Now, shouldn't every generation be, I don't know, smarter, wiser, more educated, have better character, be better able to handle substance abuse kinds of things, and those kinds of issues, be more innovative, be more creative, do more quality work? It seems like it should, right? Because we know all the stuff that we know. Think of everything that everybody that's listening to my voice right now, all the things you know. And then your children or grandchildren or the people that you're mentoring, the people in your church, etc., when they're coming around you, if we could take everything we know and give it to them, and then they did the same thing, man, in about 3 generations, we would have nothing but superstars, right? However, does that always happen? And the reality is, no, it doesn't. And so what happens is we start over. It's like the old Bill Murray movie, Groundhog Day, but it's like Groundhog Generations. Because we thrash and bash and we get all beat up and scarred up, and then it's like, okay, good. Now I'm going to go golfing or go fishing or go do something. But man, if I don't take all those lessons and pour it into at least one, if not 100, of the next generation, then they've got to repeat, many of them, a lot of the same mistakes I made, bad decisions I made, things I just didn't understand. Their financial situation will be no better because they don't know how to handle money. They'll lose a job or two because they don't know how to call in if I can't be there, or let alone just be there, you see? So the reality is every generation should get better. And we have those opportunities if we'll take those opportunities, right? And do you ever wonder why young people do such illogical things? You ever wonder about that? I mean, because young people do some pretty dumb things. Old people do too. But as a generation, there's some pretty crazy stuff that takes place. And I've really pondered this a lot, and I've concluded it's because young people's frame of reference is different than ours. They see few options, they think short term, and they don't understand consequences. Right? Few options, short term, don't understand consequences. Some years ago, I live in Midland, Michigan, which is kind of this lily white town, and everything's perfect and picket fences and all that stuff. There's a school there's a high school here, and on the outside of the high school, and it's a great high school, it says exemplary high school on the wall. Exemplary. I had to look that word up. Man, I said, boy, that place is so good. You got to read to figure out what they're good at. And a situation happened there some years ago where a young lady, her mom brought her to school. She's 17, drops her off at school. It's her new school. It's her first day at the new school, at the exemplary high school. And she got out, she had a little backpack and said, kissed her mom, and she started up the stairs, and another car pulled in, and this a young guy's driving it. He's also 17, and he had a backpack. Well, he didn't go to school there. He went to her previous school, and they had been dating, and she broke up with him because he was bad news. He wasn't good for her. And so this young lady's walking up the steps, and this young man takes a gun out of his backpack and shoots her 5 times and takes his own life on the steps of the exemplary high school, okay? And I asked myself, why would you do that? There's only 100 million other young ladies that you might find to date or marry or whatever you have in mind. Why would you do that? It's because he saw a few options. His frame of reference was very short term, and he didn't see the consequences. Now that's an extreme example, but the same thing could hold true for somebody that's going to get high on drugs all the time, become addicted to gaming and do nothing but gaming all day. Short-term thinking, don't understand the consequences, and don't understand that options are available. Well, so how do you learn about these things? If you learn it from an elder, right, and an elder is just anybody that's a little bit older, then man, you've got a shot at coming much faster and farther in life. So this call to mentor, I don't think there's anything more important these days. We can get all excited about politics and finances and stock markets and all that stuff. Where are we going to invest? Man, there's no better investment than into the next generation. The need is great. Now, I'm a dad. My wife and I have been married for 36 years, which says a lot about her stress tolerance. We've got 4 grandkids, and we've got another one on the way, which we're pretty excited about. And what's cool is mentoring is for all ages. You probably noticed that. When the kiddos are really little, a lot of the mentoring or parenting, grandparenting, foster parenting involves raised voices and panic, right? Like when little Timmy is walking toward the light socket with a fork, that's not time to sit down and reason together. Stop. No, don't do that. But as they get older, it changes. And we go from parenting or mentoring to partnering. And we help them understand that, look, I've got about 18 years to lay a foundation upon which you're going to build for half a century. And so your life will continue, Bubba, after you're not under my roof or you're not in my program and so on. So I think a lot of mentoring here, that it has to start with a vision, a shared vision for each young person under our care. It can't be my vision. It's got to be their vision that I help them pursue, right? And it can't be the world's vision either. The world's vision. I love that if I'm doing a public workshop, I love to divide the audience in two, and I'll say, complete this sentence. Big boys don't, and of course they say, Rhonda,
cry.
Big boys don't cry. Very good. Right? Now I know we got Bible people on here. So somebody else, the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus.
Pick me.
You, the young lady in the front, wept. Okay. So imagine having a nice big group of people, and then I'll just have them repeat. So I'll go to these guys and I go, okay, so big boys don't cry, Jesus wept. Big boys don't cry, Jesus wept. You see, there's something's missing there, you see. So society will give us all kinds of weird things and go into our heads. And remember, this society works 24/7. We have to sleep, but the internet doesn't. Yeah. Billboards don't, TV shows don't, movies don't. So there's all kinds of messages coming at our young people, one right after the other, after the other, after the other. And so many of the messages are conflicting and confusing. So if I'm going to be a young man growing up, I've got to be macho. I've got to be in a gang. I got to be tough because big boys don't cry. Way over on the other side of things, it's like, well, in today's world, a lot of the messages are, it doesn't even matter what you were born like. You can just be anything you want to be. You can relate as you want to relate. You can identify as you want to identify. Just this mass confusion going on here. So society is going to be, they're going to be like, up and down and up and down and up and down. There has to be a consistent message that we give to our young people about their identity, that they can all have a vision for life, and it doesn't have to be the same. When my young guys were growing up, when Chris was growing up, he loved basketball. He wanted to be a basketball player. And he was good. He's a big kid. He's almost 6'7". And so I got him a basketball and dribble. But just that understanding that was a vision that he had for his life. Certainly not the complete vision, but it was a part of a vision. And that took him through middle school, high school. He went on to play at a university, was the captain on a national championship basketball team. Went from there to the administration came in, asked him to run for student body president, which he did, and he was elected. And this changed his life. Well, where did it start? About a 7-year-old kid with a basketball. Okay. My next son, Stephen, very good athlete, didn't really like basketball. I said, son, let's talk about vision. What do you really like? And he said, music. And I'm thinking, cool, little piccolo, something quiet. Oh no, drums. I want drums. Oh my gosh. You think it was hard getting my wife to agree to the outhouse? I mean, the drums was rough. So I bought him a little set of drums, $400 set of drums, and he's up there banging away. And, I'm at the far end of the house just thinking, oh Lord, forgive me of my sin. And, it didn't take long before, bang, bang became ra-pa-pa, ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And he developed this ability with music that is amazing. And now he can play drums and guitar and keyboard and whatever. And he's written songs, instrumental songs for our TV series that air all over the world. And this kid can sit down with one hand talking to you and play on the keyboard, and he'll play a melody that will make you cry. It's very anointed. And so the point is, every young person is gifted by God, they're talented by God, they're called by God to certain things. And our job is to not say, well, no, this is what you're supposed to do. I'm an old jock, so all my kids, you're going to play football, basketball. No. My job is to kind of clear my head out and say, Lord, what do you want for that person? What do you want for that son, for that daughter, for that trainee? I don't call them mentees, by the way. That didn't make sense to me, but trainees. What is it that you want for them? So we're praying for them. We're observing what they're good at, what their kind of natural abilities are. And then we're talking to them and listening. What do you like? What do you really want to pursue? You want to catch a fish? You want to go bowling? Do you want to build an outhouse? Do you want to study something in school, in books? Do you want to take a trip and visit? Boy, when we start mining what's going on the inside, it gives us a tremendous opportunity to do the mentoring that really needs to take place. Now, you want to know what it takes to be a good mentor? Anybody want to know? I got 4 things. Number 1, time together. Time together. Time together. It's not a no-brainer. It's a brainer, because time is short and we're all really B-word. Oh, we're busy. Oh, I'm just so busy. I'm just busy. That's up to you. If you're busy, you're making choices to be busy, right? And as long as we're about the Father's business, that's busyness is okay. But when my kids first came onto the scene, I was doing city athletics. I'm trout fishing all spring. I'm deer hunting. I'm doing this, that, and the other thing. And as my friend mentioned, when you disobey God, Stephen, you can get corrected, right? Well, I got corrected. And all of a sudden, I had to come face to face with, I was being very selfish. And these young people hadn't asked to be born, they just were. So I had to start saying no to myself a whole lot. And then there was time to spend with the young people. And by the way, time together does not mean sitting in the same room watching TV. It's not what I'm talking about. It's being active. If you think about the way that Jesus taught his disciples, what did they do? They spent time together. They walked through life together. And he would say, consider the sky, look at the clouds, look at the fig tree, all right? Notice this, notice that. Man, that is just pure, beautiful mentoring right there. Because it's a life lesson right in front of us, right smack in front of us, that the young person can see, smell, feel, touch, etc. Okay? So time together. If we don't have time, then let us not describe ourselves as being, I'm really parenting or I'm really mentoring. Got to have that time. Number 2, positive relationships. Positive relationships. I've been doing this for a long time and worked with lots of groups. Often I work mostly with men, dads, mentors, etc. But I've done family stuff as well, all right, where I've worked with families. And in my observations, at times I'll see a father or a mother or a mentor they're just hammering their kids. And I'm not saying physically, but verbally. Just like, oh my gosh, can you ever, why can't you be like your older brother? And how are you ever going to amount to anything? And these kinds of daggers, emotional daggers that harm the children and create walls that push them away. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, now it's time for our family meeting, or now it's time for our devotional. Let's all be happy. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. Kids don't have a switch. We might think we've got one, but children don't, and youth don't. And so if we're not going to develop a positive relationship, pouring into that open vessel is going to be very, very difficult. Now, having said that, I want to make sure, because sometimes somebody might take this incorrectly. I believe that we should discipline or disciple our children. We should discipline them. I don't believe that young people can get away with anything, and that's what positive relationship means. By no means. By no means. We have to draw lines for them, and then they can move within those lines. So I'm not suggesting anarchy, okay? But I am suggesting that there is a way for us to build a positive relationship with young people so that they are open to our input, okay? And speaking of open, number 3 is open communication. You've got to be able to talk with young people about anything, and I mean anything. And if we think, I think sometimes we get kind of deceived and we're like, well, my kiddo would never ... right? They would never do that. I had somebody in my office yesterday, that a nice lady was explaining to me that she came into the room of her 10-year-old son, 10, and he's on the family iPad. And he gets this panic look on his face, and he heads off to the closet, and she was quicker. She's a mom, right? And guess what? Guess where little 10-year-old kiddo has been? He's been all over the world of pornography at 10, right? And this mom is sitting there talking to me like, I, what did I do wrong? And what did I do? Not enough milk no, it's this insane world in which we live right now that young people are growing up in. And there's not a whole lot of mystique about anything right now. So we've got to create those. Now think about it. Let's put it together. We got to have time together. We've got to have a positive enough relationship that there'll be a trust. And then we have to have open communication about things. And without that, we're in trouble. Because that young person, and my counsel to her was, don't make a huge deal about it, but let's distract. Let's find other things for that young person to do. But you got to be careful, because you don't want to just start heaping shame down on them either. So there's some complexities to this. But what I'm saying, you guys, is just the world today is just crazy. So I don't whine about it, but I will prepare about it. And anybody that I'm going to mentor, I want to make sure that they feel comfortable talking about anything. The fourth piece of this is predetermined life lessons. Predetermined life lessons. Here's what I mean by that. Whether you're dealing with your own child or grandchild, or a teen that is, been through the roughest of the rough, gang members and all that stuff, there are things that they need to understand, or they will not be successful in life. Can I get an amen? Amen, right? Amen. So what do we do? We think about that because we're older and we're wiser and we're more experienced, and we identify some things that if they knew these things, they would have a better shot at being successful in life. I have a list here, and this is literally the list that my wife and I wrote down years ago of things we wanted for our kids. We want them to be physically strong. So we didn't let them sit around and eat donuts and play video games all day. We're country folks, so we go outside and play, go throw rocks and get dirty. We want them to be emotionally balanced. So you don't get to throw tantrums in my house. That's not okay. But let me explain to you why it's not okay. Spiritually mature, we want them to be prepared to work. So they did chores and they did hard work and they carried firewood and they did all kinds of cool building projects and whatever. We wanted them to be nutritionally healthy. You think about some of the diets of young people today, and it's not good. Skittles and coffee. Well, that's not going to get you where you want to go. We want them to understand that they needed to serve other people. And the last one on our list was we wanted them to understand that there were absolutes in this world. Because society today says, no, everything's very relative. You can be what you want. You can think the way that you want. You can identify as you want. You may not be a boy. You may not be a girl, all this stuff. And it's like, well, there's some absolutes here. There's some absolutes, right? So we made this list of things, and we agreed, because we had two parents in the deal, that this is what we're going to watch for. And so as our kids, again, we had 4, as they would go through life, we would watch for the things that we had identified that we wanted to train them in, mentor them in, parent them in, and we'd affirm those things, right? And this is not running around just yelling, "You're awesome," when they didn't do anything. No. But if I would see one brother being kind to another brother, I go, okay, that's serving others, and that's kindness. Okay, hey, good job there. If I would see them doing chores for their mom, hey, I appreciate that. Well done. Nice job. Okay? And this could apply to anybody that we're mentoring. So if you approach it that way, your approach to parenting or mentoring is positive. You follow me? It's positive because you've identified what you're watching for, what you want to see, and then we affirm those things. And God help the family or the mentor and trainee in a relationship where there's not an identification of what we're really looking for. Because I can think what I want to see in my young people, and I mentor people that are in their 40s. I know what I'm looking for from them in terms of their vocation and how they take care of their family and so on. If I think about it, we've never talked about it, and they do it, I might say nothing. Yeah, they did good. I expect that. But when they mess up, boom, now I'm on top of it. Now I'm going to speak to it. Now I'm going to correct them. Can you see what happens with children or trainees if you don't know what you're looking for and don't start affirming those things when they do it well? Then when do they hear from us? It's when they did something wrong. And so this makes a very positive approach to mentoring as opposed to a negative one that is correction, correction, correction. Because remember what I said, a key to mentoring is positive relationships. This is the way we create that. So young people end up hearing, 9 out of 10 times, hey, good job, way to go. Thank you. Super, you did great. And then when that one time comes that they mess something up, they're not cringing because the boss is here, the dad's here, grandpa, the mentor, whoever. They don't have to cringe. They're just like, okay, I'm going to get more feedback, and I know it's going to be for my good. I know it's going to be for my good. So those are some of the things that we have to have in place if we're going to be effective mentors. I identified some enemies of mentoring.
Ooh.
These are enemies. Yeah, these are things that will stop us. The one I'd simply call wrong priorities. I've already touched on it, you guys, but when we get so busy trying to deal with our own stuff, trying to secure our own legacy, right? Yay. That's going to hurt you. That's going to take that precious time away from the next generation. And what I found is, man, you get into your 40s and your 50s and even above, there's not a whole lot more stuff that we need to do for ourselves that's going to really change our life. Okay? Now that's not necessarily society's message today. That's why we got 80-year-old women on rollerblades flying down the next to the beach, because man, I gotta stay in shape. I gotta do this. Hey, okay, well, go rollerblade, but don't do it all day. Have some time for those young people you're flying by. You're flying by, right? So we can't have wrong priorities. This one is my favorite. If you fight wrong battles with young people, it will absolutely stop your ability to positively impact them and mentor them. Now, I'm an old guy. And so when I was coming up as a teenager, those horrible human beings from England got on a plane and came all the way to the United States. The Beatles, yes, that's right. The scourge of America. And yes, I'm kidding. But what I'm not kidding about is they came, and remember what was unique about them? It was their hair. Their hair. And so you had all these gawky kids in America that are like, I think I'll go from the butch cut to look like George Harrison. That was one of the ugliest periods in America, but that's a different story, right? They're growing our hair out like this, and it's just nasty, but we did it because we wanted to be cool. Okay. So we started growing our hair down. Now, my dad was a World War II vet, right? He'd been in the Philippines. He's a hard-nosed guy. So, if it's your hair's longer than that, yeah, you're just getting a little out there. And he was absolutely convinced when the hair on the back of our neck touched our collar, somehow we were going to be doing, animal sacrifices, he just had these crazy, right? And I mean, we'd go at it because I still want to be cool. Didn't work out well. And he wants to be in control. And so we would have a battle. Now, my dad and I, we got along pretty well. My older brother didn't as well, and that started a breaking of their relationship that lasted for years over hair. Okay. And it's interesting how when you teach this stuff, you get an opportunity to have it put right back in your face. When my second son was about 14, he came to me, and he's almost going into high school, and he's got same coloration as I. He's got the dark hair and whatever. He goes, "Dad, I got a great idea." I'm like, "Oh boy, I can't wait to hear this one. What is it?" He said, "I want to put gold tips in my hair." I go, "Oh, gold tips in your hair." I said, how does one do that?" He goes, "Oh, well, you get this plastic bag and you put it on your head, and then you poke holes in it, and you pull hair through, and then you get this stuff and you do this around, and you just leave that stuff on there for a while, and you walk around with this bag on your head." I'm like, "Man, it just sounds terrible, but yeah, keep going." And yeah, you leave it on, and then you take the bag off, and then you got gold tips in your hair. And I mean, he's smiling at me like, "Yeah." And he goes, "But it's hard to do by yourself. So, but what do you think, Dad?" Man, oh man, I thought that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. This is my inner dialogue, right? What is wrong with you, boy? Are you kidding me? But what came out of my mouth was, "I'll help you." Man, did that hurt. So next thing I know, we're in the kitchen. He's got a plastic bag on his head, and where I'm slathering this junk on top there, and takes it off and washes it out, and he's got these little gold spikies all over his head. And I just said, "What do you think, Dad? How's it look?" I went, "Great." I went outside for a while, walked around, and then I was okay. Now, that was a critical juncture, because I've already experienced what happens when an elder, right, parent, mentor, and the younger clash over something that is not important. And so there was no way in the world that I was going to let something that, in my view, is irrelevant, as long as it doesn't affect my ego, as long as my ego can be set aside, right? Because it wasn't about me. And it's not about control over a kid that we're mentoring, whether it's our own child, grandchild, just a trainee or whatever. And, a month later, his hair grew out and it's getting a little itchy, and he went and he got a haircut, and the gold tips went away, and we never dealt with that again. So be careful that we don't fight wrong battles. Now, right battles deal with things like values and principles. Okay? My kids didn't do drugs. It wasn't okay to have sleepovers with, mixed gender sleepovers, stuff like that. There were value things that I would have gone to the wall for. Okay? But man, there's so many things that just don't matter. They just don't matter. And so make sure, if you're going to have a battle with a son, a daughter, a grandson, granddaughter, niece, nephew, a trainee, somebody that God has brought under your care, check your own biases and make sure that something is a value or a principle-based issue, because then you can explain it, which is a whole lot better than coming to the end of the argument and saying, "Because I said so," right? That just doesn't work. And it's such a beautiful thing if we can overcome these enemies and then focus on, what does it really take to mentor. Life can be very, very, very good.